Hi you guys, it's Elle. Welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about textured skin and how to work with it when you're applying your complexion products. So if you want to hear more about that, stay with me. But before we go on, please hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you know whenever I post new videos, and let's do it. All right, so you know that I'm a huge fan of skincare to treat textured skin. Textured skin is anything that is kind of raised on the skin, so like bumps, eczema, things of that nature. Anything that kind of creates a texture, like if you were on a wall in your room, it's not going to be flat. It has a texture to it. That's what we're talking about. Your skin kind of replicates that. Textured skin can also be kind of considered in the pore family, like large pores, things of that nature. We're not going to be addressing that too much because I have done a video on that, but we will be talking about it a small portion because we do want to make that skin look completely flawless. So while I'm applying my first product, of course, it's going to be skincare, the Dr. Dennis Gross Peel Pads. When I am trying to make sure that my skin is absolutely flawless, smooth, I will apply the Universal Dr. Dennis Gross Peel Pads to my skin before I apply my essence and everything like that. So right after I wash my skin. Now, the reason why you want to be using an exfoliator, which that's what this is because exfoliation helps to treat textured skin. It helps to remove dead skin cells. It helps to just overall give a smoother canvas. Now again, I am big into treating textured skin before it happens, and that's what these are for me. They come in 3 strengths. I'm a broken record talking about how much I love these products. This product, but it is one of those that's quick and easy, and I use on my clients every time I do their skin before I go into the complexion products, skincare, primers, things of that nature. All right, so that is on, and I bring it down the neck and all of that good stuff, and I let this sit for 2 minutes. All right, so 2 minutes has passed. I'm going in with the second pad, which is step 2. It is the neutralizer, and it just stops the acids from working. These are chock full of AHAs, and it gives you a little bit of a tingle, but nothing dramatic. But this is going to be your saving grace. But you can exfoliate with any other product that you want, even a physical exfoliator. But if you've been watching me long enough, you know that I'm not a big fan of physical exfoliators. I am a fan of chemical ones. So basically, I let that kind of sit on the skin for a few moments. I am going to go put on my essence, my hyaluronic acid serum, my vitamin C by Drunk Elephant, and then a gel-based moisturizer, and I'll be right back. All right, so my skincare is on. A couple things I want to address before we go on to primer is if you do have textured skin, using an illuminizing primer, so like the Becca Backlight Priming Filter, which is one of my favorites, it's not going to be great for your skin type. Whenever you put anything illuminizing or shiny or shimmery on top of texture, it makes it pop up. So even highlighter, shinier powders, things of that nature, you want to keep away from textured skin. Also, I highly recommend using oils. This is my favorite, Tatcha's Camellia Oil or The Ordinary's Rosehip Oil at night to really make sure that your skin is really hydrated, prepped, and plumped for the perfect canvas in the morning. All right, so when we talk about primers, we want to use primers, and you know that I use my hands for a lot of things as far as primers. I am going to tell you though, if you do have textured skin, try to start using a beauty blender or a beauty sponge of some sort. You can find them anywhere for different price points. It does not have to be a beauty blender. This one is like by L'Oreal or Revlon. I mean, there's so many, so you don't have to just use a beauty blender. But using a sponge is going to help keep your skin from picking up any kind of texture, if that makes sense. So what brushes do, or what your hands do, is they sometimes micro exfoliate, which basically means small exfoliate, which means that they kind of stir up the skin cells. They kind of help, slough off dead skin. So what micro exfoliation means is that it basically will pick up any texture and start to kind of highlight it. So you want to eliminate that or reduce it as much as possible. What I'm going to use is I'm going to use my Perfect Canvas from Ren. Broken record, I know already, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it on the back of my hand, and I'm gonna put it on my sponge, and I'm going to press it into the skin. Beauty Blender does make a sponge for applying skincare. You don't need it, just use any sponge. And I'm just making sure that I'm going in downward motions very gently so my face is completely covered in that primer. Now, when we are talking about texture or pores or things of that nature, my favorite product to use is the Milk Blur Stick. Not only because it's vegan, cruelty-free, paraben-free, blah, 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 but hey, it is just a really great product. A lot of people are using the Benefits Professional, which is a great product, but they're using it all over the face. Those kind of primers are supposed to be used strategically. The Makeup Forever Smoothing Primer is also really great for this, but again, it's not supposed to go all over the face. It's just supposed to be used in those targeted areas where you might have more texture or more pore size. So when I use this, I basically take it on my finger and I press it into the skin. This part cannot be done with a sponge or a brush. It's supposed to be done with your fingers. So the reason why I press into the skin is because we are not disrupting any skin texture. We are just literally placing this in the areas where I have a tendency to have, do you see the difference how it already blurred one side from the other? It basically is blurring those pores, smoothing out this area. And I don't usually on my nose, but you can, but I will use it in the center of my face. And I love this primer because it's so lightweight and it doesn't create more texture. So you can actually put products on your skin that are going to create more texture. So that's why we worked with skincare in very light, minimal layers and more thin layers. I'm just putting it above my mouth because this is where I have a tendency to have some creasing and cracking and all that good stuff. And then when I do get texture, it's right here. So I'll put this right here. All right, so the skin is prepped and ready to go. Now, when we're working with foundations, I recommend, again, if you have textured skin, to make sure that you're using a foundation that either has a natural finish to it or a semi-matte, okay? So I'm going to be using my La Mer foundation, and I'm going to be taking it on a beauty blender. For textured skin, a beauty blender or a beauty sponge is going to be your best friend. If you have texture, do not use a brush. A buffing brush, a foundation brush, all it's going to do is disrupt the texture that you have on your skin and make it more apparent. So by using a beauty blender, again, you can see we're using these stippling motions. We're not dragging, we're not, putting in, circular motions. We are literally pressing this into the skin. So again, going right on top of that texture, right on top of those pores, and placing and depositing product over those areas of concern. We are not disrupting all of that hard work we just did. And also, when you're doing this, you'll be using less product because you won't be trying to cover as much. This foundation does have a skin kind of finish to it. It's a more matte finish, but it definitely looks like skin. And I don't have to use very much. So again, for the 12th time, if I can say texture, it's not adding texture on the skin by building up unnecessary layers of coverage. So now we're going to move on to, because I know that my community is really concerned with texture underneath the eyes. Texture underneath the eyes is very hard to deal with, but I do love using a hydrating eye cream. The IT Cosmetics Bye Bye Under Eye is my ultimate go-to eye cream because it has a smoothing technology to it. I'm going to use today the Tarte Rainforest of the Sea Concealer in Fair Light. And the reason why I have chosen to use this concealer is because it is lightweight. There is not a ton of coverage, and it's more of a water-based serum type of concealer. You can also use, which I don't know if I have in front of me, I don't, is the Bare Minerals Serum Concealer. That one is fantastic. By using a concealer that doesn't have a ton of coverage, that is more water-based or lightweight or serum-like, you are going to get it to be less in your fine lines and less texture is going to be picked up. All right, so you can see that that is such a beautiful concealer. You can build this concealer up very little if it's not enough coverage for you. But again, we're talking about texture, and textured skin needs very light layers of product. So you don't want to throw a ton on. You want to do these kind of light skin-like layers. This is super important to remember. Yes, it does take a little bit more time, but if you are really trying to get that flawless canvas, you really want to make sure that you're working in these sheer layers. I'll tell you from experience working with my red carpet clients, that's why makeup takes a little bit longer when we do it, is because we work in such strategic, lightweight, sheer layers. All right, so our concealer is on, our foundation is on, and we're ready to move on to setting. Now, this is going to be something different than I usually do because we're dealing with a different topic, which is textured skin. So what I'm going to be using for my under eye area, again, we talked about not using illuminating powders over textured skin. Now, again, if you have a lot of texture under the eyes, using a combination between a loose translucent powder and a luminous setting powder or finishing powder will be great. Also, using your beauty blender. I have not done this in a long time because I have really treated my skin with great skincare, so I no longer have a ton of texture. So that's why I use a brush to set under the eyes. But I want to show you a different technique here. So I'm going to take my Hourglass Luminous Light. I'm just going to press my beauty blender into it. You don't need to clean your beauty blender off of it or anything like that. You want it to be damp. I'm also going to place it in my loose translucent powder. This is by Cover FX. Tapping it on my hand to get any excess off. And I'm just going to place this right under the eye. This is not baking. I will let you know that this is not baking. Literally what we're doing is we're taking the powder and we're melting it into the skin with this damp beauty blender. And you see how much I'm tapping this back and forth? I'm not disturbing anything that we have done. I'm literally just depositing, the powder and pressing it into the skin. And again, this is not baking because you know how I feel about baking. This is literally just pressing the powder into the skin. The tip is to use this damp beauty blender as a more hydrating setting technique. And then for the rest of the face, I usually do the same thing. But again, if you have a bunch of texture, skip the illuminating powder and just use your beauty blender all over the face with a good quality translucent powder. And my obsession is either the La Mer, the powder, or the Cover FX loose translucent powder, which I'm using right now. And again, we're using tapping motions to not disturb any of the texture we have on the skin. And it's blending into the skin seamlessly without a powdery finish. All right, so the face is set. It has not exacerbated any pores or made anything look more dry or brought up any texture that wasn't there. I do want to impress upon you guys to use a very light hand when you do this technique. I literally pick up probably this much powder. Do you see that? That's how much powder I use to set the rest of the face. And I use this tapping, bouncing motion is really important. All right, now before we finish up with this technique, say for example, you notice, okay, you've done all of these things and you think to yourself, oh gosh, right here I'm noticing a little bit more texture, or I'm noticing texture still. I use my Sephora Collection Micro Smooth Powder, same beauty blender, just a little bit, and I'll tap it right over where I see a little bit more texture, and it just blends away. Just like this. And it really makes the skin look beautiful and smooth. And you're using this strategically, you're not using this all over. That's usually where I put it. See? Beautiful. I feel like put together and everything looks really perfected. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take as the final step is I'm going to take my Too Faced Hangover Setting Spray. You can take any setting spray you want. I would recommend using one that does not have alcohol in it. And I'm going to generously put this all over the face. And if you would like to, you can still press in ever so gently that setting spray into the skin. And as we know, if you guys have watched my how to use setting sprays, is that we press it in and use a setting spray because what it does is it takes away the powdery kind of finish of the powders we have used. It takes it away, melts everything into the skin, makes everything look like skin again, and you're ready to rock and roll. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Hope you guys found it informative. Please leave comments below. Let me know what else you guys want to know about. I love these Quick Tip Tuesdays, and I will see you guys on the next one. Lots of love from me to you. Bye, you guys.